something that is old and something that cannot be recreated. That to me is valuable. It has nothing to do with money.
I agree with that. I think that it's something you hold dear to your heart and that you have great connection to. I think that's valuable.
Somebody who's a true friend is somebody that can just be there for you. You know that they're always there. That if you ever need anything, they are there. They don't have to come out and do anything for you. Just know that if you need them, they're there. I'm Dorothy, but everybody calls me Dottie. Nobody would dare call me Dorothy because I just don't go for that. And I grew up on the East Side, and I lived there until I got married.
In Stanford.
In Stanford, right. And then I moved to an apartment with my husband for 1 year, and then we moved up to this house, and we've been here ever since. And just a side note, he was my childhood sweetheart, my high school sweetheart, I should say. From high school until death do us part.
That's it. Darlene Ravegno, and I actually grew up in Stanford and lived here for many years until I got married and moved away.
Yeah, and I'm her mother. She's not only a good daughter, she's a good friend, and she's my best friend, really. I had this one friend from high school. We did everything. She was like my best friend. I still talk to her occasionally, not as often as before, but we did everything together. We were like blood sisters. Yeah, we used to love to dance, and we both liked to dance, and her brother was a really good dancer, and he had a friend. I think these guys are much older than us, and he was a good dancer too. So they would take us over to a dance hall, just us, the four of us, and they would teach us all kinds of different dances, and that, to me, was a memory that I'll never forget. It was such fun.
So growing up, I had this friend who I'm still actually really good friends with her today, but I guess one of my favorite stories about her is that it was my 16th birthday.
Yeah, I remember that well.
And we were, my mother was throwing a surprise party for me, and all my friends were here, and I was down at Patty's house, which is, down and around the corner, walkable. And I wanted to go home. I was down there for the day, and I wanted to go home. So I packed up my stuff, and I started walking home, and Patty's like, I'll come with. And I'm like, it's okay, I can go by myself. And we walked, and she's walking super slow because apparently everybody wasn't here just yet, so she was trying to kill some time. And she's walking so slow, and I'm like, come on, I want to get home. We finally get to the crest of the hill here, just before turning onto my street. And she was panicking because nobody was there yet. Or half the people weren't there yet. Yeah. And she literally laid in the middle of the road. Like, just laid flat out and wouldn't move. And I went, are you crazy? What are you doing? There's going to be car. It wasn't a very traveled road, but still, she's laying in the middle of the street. And finally we got home, and I realized why she did it. And interestingly enough, to this day, we still always say, she always says it to me, I would lay in the middle of the road for you any day. And I just think, like, that's a true friend right there. I mean, that back then was like a joke, but it still carried through in our friendship all these years, because she's always had my back for me, like always. And she's just one of those people who I know I can always count on her, even if I don't talk to her for years, which I hadn't after we had graduated. We kind of separated and went our ways, but right back to where we were back in high school. Yeah. So, yeah. That's a good story.
That's a very good story.
It is a good story. I mean, I think with friendships, you kind of have to, especially these days, I find you have to sort of really find that person who's going to be true to you. There's a lot of people out there who are saying they're your friends, but they'll turn around and, have something to say about you behind your back, or, they're just not a true friend like we had talked about before, that somebody who would really just be there regardless, no questions asked or what have you. And I just think that you just kind of have to pick and choose, wisely, and just make sure that, nobody's out there to
stab you in the back.
Well, yeah, but more so just out for themselves. Yeah. And just like you serve a purpose for them. Do you know what I'm saying? And then eventually later on it comes out that they're really not your friend, because friendships are hard.
Very hard.
And they're hard to maintain. I mean, you've got some great friends from what, like
high school,
50, 60
years
ago?
Least, yeah, more, yeah.
Which is pretty admirable that you have those friendships, you know.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I have friendships that are from high school, which, you know, we still get together, and I just find that a lot of people don't have that sometimes these days.
They don't.
Yeah.
They definitely don't. I mean, the friends that I have that are from high school days, I mean, we went through everything. We graduated together. We saw our kids born. We went to each other's weddings. Went to their children's weddings. So, I mean, you know, that is something that very few people can say.
Those are true friendships.
Yeah.
Though, like, to me, that always amazed me. Like, your group of friends, you know, growing up, you'd always have them over, and I was like, oh, that's great. But to see it carry through all those years, I find you don't see that too often these days.
I don't think so either.
People are fleeting these days, and it's, you know.
Everybody's in it with, like, kind of like, what's in it for me?
Yeah. Well, not everybody, but there are a lot of people.
There are a lot of people that are like that. Yeah, right.
So,
it's hard to find a true friend. And when you do find a true friend, I think you have to hold them close to your heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, when I wanted to call the kids in, I had a bell on the back door, and I'd just ring the bell, and they'd come running. Now, I don't know what you do today. What do you text them? Come on in?
Yeah. Well, I text them from downstairs to upstairs back in the day. Dinner's on the table. No. It is. It's a lot different. I think, back in the day, you know.
Well, I had to ring the bell because you were all outside.
Yeah.
Somewhere on the block.
Or we knew what time we had to be home.
Yeah.
You know, it was
true.
like dinner's at 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, dinner's on the table at 6 o'clock. You're home to eat, and then, you know, you can go back out afterwards if you want to.
Right.
But we kind of had, you know, run of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And just did our thing until dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was it. And then we were in the street area itself after dinner while it was getting dark and whatever. I mean, I think location is a big thing too. I mean, in this neighborhood growing up, our houses are very close and we are all very tight knit. Where my girls grew up in the neighborhood where it was much more spread out. Yeah. So you weren't going outside to play with your neighbor because your neighbor could have been like, you know, two or three
streets over.
2 or 3 streets over, or you know, you had like a bunch of acres in between you, and it was just harder to do that. So I think that's different.
Plus the fact that today, I think most of the kids are inside.
True.
Your day, when you were growing up,
we were outside.
Everybody was outside, and if I knew if I didn't see her on the street, I could just call one of the neighbors. Everybody knew everybody's kids, and everybody watched out for everyone. It was a very safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's a small neighborhood, but it was very safe.
The parenting today, it's either more
loose.
Well, it can be the extreme. It can be a little loose, where you kind of let your kids do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, and they kind of run the ship. Or you've got the helicopter parents who are just every little thing is scheduled and planned, and they're hovering over their kids, and you know, kids aren't allowed to be kids because they've got, you know, activity after activity, and you know, that's stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really stressful. My girls had activities, but not to the point where they were at full exhaustion because they were running from one to another. They had like one activity that they were focused on, and that was fine. But they weren't overscheduled, and I think that's hard for kids these days, to be super overscheduled and helicoptered, and it's even hard for them to have no boundaries. I think that can almost be sometimes harder. So it's a fine line.
I agree with that.
Right?
Absolutely.
I didn't have much technology growing up. Honestly, I mean, we played on the street. We came home from school, we did our homework, and we were outside. The only technology we had was TV, and you had to get up and change the channel for it. There was no remote control, so, you know, So you guys are much more advanced than us. We were literally outside, you know, street rats playing in the street all day.
Yeah. And my technology was pencil and paper. And I still prefer pencil and paper anyway. But you know, I think my generation. Now I'm 85 years old, and I think that I do pretty good technology-wise. Don't you think?
I think you do.
Yeah,
I
I taught her how to do online banking.
No, you did. You did. But I taught you how to text.
Yes, you did. Yeah, and I text a lot, and I play a lot of games on. You know, I really do a lot of research on the computer too, internet. Yeah. So I think that my generation, a lot of people that I talk to don't do that at all.
I mean, I think it has negative and positive impacts. I feel like it's, as far as like being, you know, fast forwarding, you know, fast forward, we're on the fast track to the future and all that. I think that you guys have a really great sense of technology and getting you where you want to go and where the world is taking us.
I myself, I think it's a little bit out of control.
Oh, the negative side of it. Right. So the negative side, yeah, I agree. I feel like that. I feel like too many people are stuck with their heads down and not really seeing life for what it really is. You know, they're in that phone, or they're on the tablet, or they're, you know, rushing around trying to, you know, get to the next thing online, and you're just missing life, I think.
I agree with you. I mean, a lot of people just say, well, you know, instead of calling me, they'll text me. And I don't always have my phone in my pocket. I don't walk around. Shut up. I don't. I mean, I would rather pick up the phone and talk to somebody person to person. But if I want to tell them something real quickly, well, that's not going to happen, because if they don't have their phone on them or on, you know, and I think that we're getting a little bit out of control. I think there's just too much hacking. I just think that it's just, I think it's
not
out of control.
safe anymore.
No, it's not safe.
When it first came out, I think it was a little more safe, and now everybody's just, you know, being hacked and whatever. But to your point, I think that, yeah, it's gotten out of control. Mm-hmm. But I think the texting part, I'm okay with that. Like, it's great to talk to people and just catch up on the phone. But today's world, most people are totally texting. And I hear what you're saying, because, you know, we grew up with telephones on the wall, right? Not in our hands. So, you know, that's what we're used to. So it's kind of hard to get away from that, especially at your generation. I think it's harder to get away from the phone and move into the texting realm. But I kind of like the texting because it's fast, it's easy. Everybody pretty much has their phone in their hands. Yeah. But everything else that goes along with technology, of everybody constantly having their heads down and, you know, just just detached from everybody else. I think that's the scary part of it. Yeah.
I just like to know that if I'm talking to you and I want to say something, we can laugh about it. LOL. That doesn't do it for me.
It doesn't
As a matter of fact, my LOL doesn't mean laugh out loud. Mine means lady of leisure. And I still like to pick up the phone and call and talk to them. I like to hear their voice. Mm. And of course, that's my generation. And I still like writing letters.
Yeah, that's a lost art these days.
Yeah. I like writing, and I like getting mail in the mailbox. But that's, again, the generation gap. Mm. Although you write a nice letter.
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, you are.
That's my mama. I love her. She'll always be my mama. She'll always be my bestie. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I think that's all you wanted to know, right?
Maybe more than you wanted to know. I don't know.
I won't tell about the time when we went to
No, we should just cut it at this part. We should cut it at this point.
That was funny with dress fun.
Yeah, that's off camera. We'll talk about that one.